Even over a decade since its release, one of the biggest conspiracy theories surrounding The Walking Dead Season 2 is that Telltale secretly wanted players to abandon Kenny. But is this just a baseless claim from fans dissatisfied with the sequel's direction, or does it reveal something deeper, perhaps even internal conflict with the original Season 1 writers? In this video, we'll dig into that question. Did Telltale really hate Kenny? The first major point to tackle is Kenny's apparent death in Season 1. Whether we look at the Ben sacrifice or the Krista version, both feel unmistakably final. In each, Kenny is swarmed by walkers while trying to save someone, and makes complete peace with his fate, even refusing Lee's help. In the Ben scenario especially, Kenny doesn't merely risk his life, he practically chooses to end it by staying behind. And when you listen to the in-game audio of his so-called fight, it sounds less like a struggle and more like someone dying. Early 2010s claims even suggest an audio file existed that explicitly depicted his death. This moment is crucial because it brings Kenny's arc full circle. He begins as an overprotective family man and ends as a father who has lost everything, a reflection of what Lee could become if he were to lose Clementine. Throughout the story, Kenny's role is to test how strongly you value absolute loyalty and the duty to protect those you love. After losing his own family, he breaks from that original drive, risking his life for someone outside his kin, even the boy whose actions led to their downfall. His final sacrifice delivers a clear message to Lee. To save Clementine, he too must be willing to lose everything, even his own life. With all the evidence that Kenny's arc in Season 1 felt complete, and that he seemed at peace with his own death, what does it say about the entirely new Season 2 writing team that they choose to bring him back? I'll be the first to admit I actually love Kenny in Season 2, maybe even more than Season 1. He's reintroduced as the spiraling protector, a version of Lee who never managed to save his own Clementine, and now he'll do anything, hurt anyone, to avoid losing loved ones again. He steps up more often, takes charge without waiting for consensus, and proposes plans the player doesn't necessarily shape. He's essentially the same steadfast man, but now with a sharper edge and a far greater conviction. Here's where the problem starts. Nearly every new character spends their time criticizing Kenny.
Listen, we just gotta get away from that guy, Clem, okay?
Luke, Bonnie, Mike and Arvo all portray him as unhinged and impossible to live with, yet none of them present real solutions or take the lead themselves. It's as if their primary purpose is simply to challenge Kenny. As Kenny endures loss after loss, Walter, Sarita, Rebecca, and becomes AJ's primary caregiver, he grows increasingly ruthless. He holds Arvo hostage to prevent a gunfight, beats him after Arvo's reckless dash across a frozen lake nearly gets Clementine killed, and lashes out when Arvo leads them to a shack containing nothing but cans of chili. Useless for a baby. This deeply traumatized man, coping with constant pain and the burden of protecting both a child and a newborn, is repeatedly portrayed as irrational. But why? Many of his actions are understandable in hindsight. Who wouldn't hold a teenager at gunpoint if a newborn's life were at risk? Who wouldn't lash out after that same teen helped spark a shootout that almost killed an 11-year-old? The game, however, keeps the pressure on Kenny at every turn. Why? The most common speculation is that the writers wanted players to favor Jane, one of the Season 2 team's own creations. They don't present her as flawless, but she's given far fewer drawbacks than Kenny. No one openly argues with her or calls her unstable. Her main flaw is simply that she's a lone survivor who bails when groups get messy. Essentially, she's unreliable. It feels as though the game piles every burden onto Kenny, while positioning Jane as the competent alternative. So when the finale arrives and AJ is suddenly missing, few players suspect Jane of hiding the baby, least of all Kenny. He lashes out, a fight breaks out, and almost without warning, you're staring at two options: shoot Kenny or look away. By then, the narrative has framed Kenny as delusional and dangerous, while the truth of the situation is hidden from the player. Looking away feels like condoning murder. No one wants to watch an innocent woman die. When the game first released, many players shot Kenny, only to learn Jane had hidden AJ deliberately to provoke him. If this writing feels off to you, that's because it is. Unless you're replaying the game or watching every detail closely, there's little chance Kenny comes across as more rational than Jane, even when he actually is. And no, it isn't because Kenny is abusive as some claim. It's far more likely that the writers took a character who once held major importance and reshaped him into an emotional plot device. Someone to be sacrificed in order to elevate a new character above him. Could it be that the Season 2 writing team genuinely wanted players to choose their own character over the ones created by the original writers? Maybe. There's certainly room for that theory. Another possibility is a little different. By the end of Season 2, the writers may have wanted players to dislike both Jane and Kenny, regardless of the choices made, so they could remove them entirely and leave Clementine on her own, a clean slate for a new frontier. This theory makes sense when you look at the Clementine in Season 3. She carries none of Kenny's values or teachings. She still uses the leg takedown Jane taught her, but otherwise she's a lone wolf. And both Kenny and Jane are written out in the most disrespectful ways imaginable. It's telling that the only lasting skill Clementine seems to carry forward is the leg takedown she learned from Jane. Perhaps enough players chose Kenny that reconciling the branching paths became too difficult, forcing the writers to abandon the choose your protector route. I won't pretend to know the writers' exact intentions, this is only a theory, but it does feel as though the developers wanted Kenny to be mocked and sidelined, using him as a familiar face for cheap emotion while allowing newer characters to outshine him. Did Telltale want you to abandon Kenny? I believe the evidence points to yes. The game seems designed to push you towards shooting Kenny, giving Jane just enough flaws to avoid obvious bias, yet not enough to outweigh the relentless criticism aimed at Kenny himself. The motive is harder to pin down. Maybe the writers wanted to elevate newer characters over him, or perhaps they simply needed a reason to remove both Kenny and Jane so Clementine could stand alone in a new frontier. That part will always be open to debate, and I'd love to hear your theory. What feels certain is that Kenny became a character left behind, a figure Telltale stopped truly investing in. Even his iconic hat disappears after a new frontier, as if nothing about him was meant to last. Whether you chose to spare him or not, it seems clear Telltale intended for players to lay Kenny to rest. Whether you love or hate Kenny, the game may have already made that choice for you.
It don't make it any less wrong. You don't just end it because it's hard. You stick it out, and you help the folks you care about.
This video would not have been possible without my members: Gog, Wizard Elf, Eternal, Canadian, Fresh Pokemon Hunter, Ross Mo, Beatbox Blade, Donny, Poop and Sock, Alexander Brantley, Jojo My Dojo, Thy Oasis, Skullskill777, Chesburger, HL2GOAE, Freezing Dice, Spelladonna, Elva, Xavier de God, Ruka Q8, and Fran Senpai Reacts. You guys are honestly awesome, and it truly means the world to me. Thank you to anybody who's watched this far, and I truly hope you enjoyed.